Okay, so just before we start, how many of you struggle in roadmap planning and tracking all those big rocks? Put our hands out there. Yeah. And how many of you struggle to get a real straightforward and objective answer to the simple question, are we on track? Are we on track? Right? We're doing so much delivery and still we struggle with that. We have so many tools and challenges, it's still the number one question to ask. So my name is Erez Morabia. I'm VP R&D at Papaya Global, which is a fintech company in Israel. I'm an Agile coach for the past 6 years, and I'm also the co-founder of Inside Out AI, which helps organizations improve their product delivery using AI. I have 7 kids, and I'm the author of Make Your Work Week Awesome, which is a time management book. And I guess you have to have great time management skills to handle the logistics of 7 kids. And what I would like to talk today about is that when I'm moving between organizations, either the ones that I'm consulting to or the ones I work for, most of them, they know how to handle their sprints. Okay, they look at the 2 weeks and they know how to do that pretty efficient. However, when they zoom out and they go to the roadmap level, either quarterly, half year, yearly, this is where the mess starts. Okay, and this is what I want to talk about. I mean, this is something that disturbs me for the last few years, and I invested a lot of energy into that because what I get, as solution is by this tool and this another adds-on, and collect more data and more data. I don't need more data. I need just the accurate data. We have too much data in this era. So let's look for a brief, what does it road management really means? I mean, we have our big requirements, right? And then we have our teams. For example, have 70 engineers, 10 teams over 4 business domains. Okay, so I have in a quarter I get like 30, 40 big rocks of requirements. And then I have those 10 teams, then I need to match them, put up this puzzle, and this is my plan. And then, of course, 2 days afterwards, the plan is changing. It's obvious, but I have a baseline. And then I, execute it and track it. And at the end, I retrospect, why did I miss? Okay, and it goes on and on and on and on like that. So I would like us to look on the planning phase and the tracking phase, and let's break it down. Maybe we can get some best practices out there. So what usually teams do when they go to their when product managers ask the engineering team, how much capacity do you have for the next quarter to give me so I can know how many requirements I can give you, and they start with those fancy magic formulas. I have 10 people on the team, they are engineers, so I'll multiply that by the number of weeks I have in a quarter, and then I'll apply on that Pareto, because I need to take, this vacation, sickness days, HR events, so I'll take 80% of that. The number is still too high, so I'll do double Pareto. That's a new one. So 80% multiplied by 80%, and I get a number. Maybe I'll take the last sprint as a buffer, or maybe I also calculate my team leaders as half because they half managing, half coding. And actually what I really want to do is understand what reality is. And we actually know how to do that on the sprint level. It calls velocity. So just use velocity, right? So if you have we learned that long time ago that if I want to look on my next sprint, I'm just looking on the average of the last sprints, and I know pretty much how much there will be. It's including vacation days, sickness days, unexpected work, everything. Same goes for the roadmap level. Use velocity as your metrics. I'm talking about quarter and 2 week sprints. I'm taking the average velocity, multiply by 6, and I get it. Now I have my big rocks, okay, and I'm trying to estimate them. So, and again, what I see most organizations are doing is looking at this big requirement and say, well, it will take me 4 sprints of a team. Okay, or it will make me 12 weeks of a person. Okay, but when I'm trying to match that to velocity, it's not apples to apples. Okay, so I'm getting lost. And what we are actually doing besides that is that our people are working on the day-to-day and specific metrics, like story points, working days, counts, whatever. And all of a sudden, in this phase of roadmap planning, we shift to a different metric. So they don't really know how to use that. So again, stay in the same metric. If you're using story points, use story points. If you're using count, use count. If you're using working days, still use working days. Okay, and then you can match your velocity or capacity to your epics. Now, I added to this slide one note is about work versus delivery. So suppose we are looking at the roadmap in a velocity kind of way. We have our epics estimated or counted, whatever. Still, when I look at the velocity, it can mean a lot of things. I think organizations are too worried about, how they measure things. Whether I'm using like working days or I'm using pure story points or I'm doing no estimations, just counting pieces. They're so worried about that, I forget about what they measure. Okay, and what does it mean when the product manager waits to understand how much capacity he has to put epics in? We need to give him a number that reflects that. And sometimes we look at the overall velocity, not sometimes, most of the time, it includes more work than just the delivery. So if I give him my teams can do like 1,000 story points a quarter, and this is my velocity and this is what I give him, I'm misleading him because part of that work is not related to him. Maybe it's technical debt, maybe I'm counting their bugs, maybe I'm counting their production incidents. I don't know, and every organization is something different. So you need to really know what is the portion of your delivery when you're giving out the velocity to the stakeholders. Okay, and this is something that leads to failure because if I'm giving 2 times that I have, I won't make it. Now let's go to the tracking phase. Okay, suppose we were successful with the planning phase. Hopefully it was short. Now what we are doing, we are asking constantly, are we on track? If we are off track, we are trying to pull up mitigations and trying to get back on track, right? In a high level. Now, when I look on my 70 engineers, 10 teams, in order to understand whether I'm on track, so I have like 30 to 40 epics, those big rocks. So I'm going over them and see if they are like on track or off track individually, and then go to the product managers and ask them, do you think that in your business domain, do you feel you are on track? Do you feel you are on track? And then I go to my engineering managers and I ask them, technically speaking, do you feel like the technology is okay and you're feeling on track with those epics? And I get a lot of subjective answers. Now, it depends on your culture and where you're coming from, but usually people are over-optimistic, right? In my country, in Israel, people are very direct and still, they tell me the truth in my face, and still they are wrong most of the time. Because they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to accumulate this entire data. Because when I come to an engineering manager or product manager and ask him, how do you feel in this sprint, his subjective answer will be similar to the objective answer because it's 2 weeks, it's a short time, manageable number of tickets. When you go to the roadmap, I have, 40 epics, 2,000 user stories. Who can tell whether we are on track or off track? So this is where we need to invest in data collection and automation to make our life easier. We can't really compile this entire data into a single answer. And actually what I really would like to have is the same way I have a sprint burn down that shows me whether I'm on track or off track, I want a roadmap burn down that shows me that. And surprisingly, most of the tools in the market, they don't have that. I don't know why. I really don't know why, but they don't have that. And this has brought me to rethink on what do I consider on track. I think this is the big question. So when I look on data collection automation, and I'll take here Jira as example because it's the dominant tool in the market, but it can be in other tools as well. I expect to have Kanban board for every roadmap. Now, what is a Kanban board? It shows you like the workflow of epics of your big rocks over workflow. So suppose we take here a very simple workflow. Epic is created, is in a discovery phase, then it's being sliced and estimated, so it's ready for development. Then it goes to development into the sprint, and then it's done. Okay, very, very simplified. Now, I think when I look at that board, it has two portions, the left side and the right side. Now, the left side is where the epic is a pretty vague one. I mean, you have a few sentences, you get a grasp of what the product manager wants to do. You're looking at that, you say, well, I think it's 35 story points. Why? I don't know, because I've done this epic in the past, it was similar. Let's go with that. When it goes to the right side, this is where it's breaking down into stories, okay? And you can estimate them, and you have like better estimation of what you have. So what I would really like to see as a answer to whether I'm on track or off track is accumulating all this data. When I'm on the left side, I want to take the estimation from the epics level, and when I'm on the right side, I want to take the estimation from the breakdown, okay? And actually, tools can do that using automation. So I've did this experiment with Jira, and actually you can build like, not that simple automation, but still it's one-time configuration, and all of a sudden you have a release burn down. It doesn't look like a sprint burn down, it's more like an epic burn down, the ones that are familiar with Jira, but it provides you prediction whether you're on track or off track in one click. Okay, so I have 70 engineers, and in one click I can understand whether my entire department is on track for a quarter. If they're off track, I can drill down into a domain, again in one click. I can drill down into a team, again in one click. And this is because I defined what I see as on track and off track. And of course, things are changing all the time, but when they change and I become off track, I know that immediately because it takes me one click to know that. Now, suppose I've done all that work and have automation in place, and I'm looking at this wonderful roadmap burn down, and I'm off track. Now, those graphs have so many details that I need to analyze in order to understand where the pitfall is, and it takes me time. And actually, there's no one graph. There are a couple of graphs that the tool is generating, and this is where I can use the power of AI to leverage this data into insights. So if I have one click getting the data accumulated, and then I put it into AI to generate the insights, I get fast decision making, okay? And it's not just analyzing those graphs. This AI, for example, in this case, I've built a customized GPT that can analyze this data. And by the way, you can analyze screenshots. You don't even need to export sensitive data from your tool. You can just give him screenshots with histograms and numbers. That doesn't mean anything to anyone. And he can analyze that instantly. And for example, if I need to look on 12 points on why I'm off track and analyze those graphs, I miss a lot of the times, but AI doesn't miss that. Okay, so I can run it a couple of times, get a straight answer. For me, it changed the way I track roadmaps. Instead of investing 3 hours a week, it takes me about 15 minutes, both to analyze whether I'm on track or off track and get the actionable items that I need to do in order to bring projects that are off track to be on track again. Now, it's not only about the time saving, because when I know I have a task that takes 3 hours, I will skip it. If I skip it, then I miss the opportunity for better maneuvering my projects, okay? And I get better accuracy because, honestly, those tools can analyze much better than me. They don't get tired, okay? You just do it over and over and over again. Now, the way I look on, roadmap management is that, first of all, we have to have data. It was always true and will definitely true in the AI domain. Data is gold. Okay, you have to have the right data in the system, and you need to understand what kind of data you have. On top of that, invest time in the tools you're using in your own organizations to create the right automation to gather that data, because when you scale up to a roadmap level, you can't do that manually. You just give up. On top of that, use AI to analyze your IDs, okay? Your data, and get insights into what you need to do so you will be able to do fast decision making. Now, if I look at the domain of AI, how many of you use on a daily basis ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude? Perfect. How many of you use that for the Agile domain? Okay, nice. How many of you experiment with vibe coding, like tools like Base44, Lovable, Bold? Okay. And I think, we sometimes look aside on those tools and we don't really jump in and try to use them. And those tools can really, really help you analyze your data. I even heard in this open space about how AI changes your domain, about someone that builds a tool instead of Jira using vibe coding. Amazing. I mean, you can do so much things with that. And I think most of us, we are here. We are in the data side. We don't invest into building the automations in our tools. We are not leveraging AI for our purposes, okay? We are using AI for, I don't know, fine-tuning our emails or, planning our next trip to Prague or whatever, but we don't use it enough inside our organizations. Now, I added a couple of more slides because I think, AI is reshaping the way we look on the Agile way. And I'm seeing that happening. I think, the roles are changing, the workflows are changing. And I give you an example of UX and product managers using vibe coding tools to build their prototypes, okay? They don't need any more engineering teams to do that. This is amazing. I mean, the main concept in Agile is like, because it's a complex domain, right? It's a complex domain. You need to try and experiment, understand, and reveal the unknowns. And what happens today with vibe coding, the product manager can iterate without even a single line of code that he generated. The vibe coding tool generated for him, but he didn't generate that. So all of a sudden, you don't need like those sprints to get fast feedback loop. You just, iterate yourself. Every hour you get a result, and that's it. And I see that happening in my company and other companies in Israel as well. They're already iterating, and then the requirements that coming to the engineering teams, they are much mature. They already revealed a lot of unknowns from product perspective. And there's another concept called prompt porting. Someone heard about prompt porting? Of course not, because I made it up. I didn't know what name to give to that, but once I have the tool that was developed with the vibe coding, I don't need to take the code from that tool into my organization. I can take the intent of the product into my organization. And I think this is where many organizations fail, because it's a security problem to take a code that you develop in vibe coding and inject to the organization. It's a mess. You won't pass the CISO folks, the security folks. But if you already developed that, and again, in your organization, engineers are using also LLM-based tools like Cursor, Copilot, and so on and so forth. So you generated a product in one LLM tool and you want to inject that to another LLM tool. And you can just ask this tool, please, reverse engineer what you have done and inject that to the other tool. Okay, so this is my hypothesis here, is that we can take the prompts and it will not be user story, it will be user prompts that we can inject into the engineering team so they can develop better because their tools are also AI powered, okay? So the revolution comes to two sides of that. And another example I want to show you is that usually when you could think about AI in an organization, you think about this AI assistant, code assistant tools that I mentioned, but actually a nice use case that I found is like when a product managers come with a requirement to your product. And for example, my company is there for 7 years. The product manager wasn't there for 7 years. So a lot of change. He doesn't really know what the logic is inside a product. He guesses a lot of time. And if this he worked with that for 2 weeks, he has his requirement settled in, but he can get that requirement and challenge that with the code, the existing code, and ask the AI, look at the requirement, look at the logic in the code, compare them, and let me know what I miss, Reveal me the unknown unknowns now, not after the engineers will invest sprints into development. And actually it worked. And it can give you like nice list of 10 things, and you can review it and make your requirement better. Because in our organizations, people leave after, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years. You never know what is the existing logic in big products that you have. And AI can really leverage that power. I'm getting so much from the community, both the Agile community and the AI community, and I want to give a bit back. You can scan that QR code. I'm going to send their link to the Customers GPT and other Customers GPT that you might want to use. And I decided to do a free webinar on how vibe coding will leverage your productivity, specifically in the Agile domain. Like 60 minutes of going through ideas and some real use cases on how you can use vibe coding. Because, folks, I think we're living in exciting times. It can be a bad thing or a good thing, but I think it's a good thing. We are inside an AI revolution right now, okay? And we need to be part of it. It's going to change the landscape of Agile. It's not like moving between waterfall and Agile kind of way, but it's more like Agile plus plus. It's going to change how Agile looks like for sure. So take the time and be part of it. It was great to be part of this conference. Thank you very much.